Hello and welcome to my channel. This video that I'm making today is going to be an interesting video, I hope. I'm going to show you some new techniques that I haven't gone over before. One thing that I want to show you is how to make a prototype sample card before you use your actual materials to make the card. Sometimes you have papers and materials which are rather expensive, or you only have a little bit of it and you want to see how the card is going to look before you finish it. So an easy way to do this is to use copy paper and make photocopies and all kind of tricks and things, which I'm going to show you real quick. The card I'm making today is an anniversary card for my good friend Bob and Jeannie. They have been married 23 years. And I wanted to make a card that is very special for them. I hope that you like this card when you see it, Bob, Jeannie, if you're watching my video. And if you aren't watching, why aren't you? So let me clear this stuff away and jump right in to show you how I made this card. Let me go over the materials that I use for this card. I have the papers first. I have a card base, which is cut 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. I have a black mat cut 5 1/4 by 4. I have a white gray pattern paper, which is cut 5 1/4 by 4. And I have a panel of beige, which is cut, guess what, 5 1/4 by 4. I also have a white panel which is cut 4 1/2 by 3 1/2, made a little note on there. I have a black scrap which is about 4 1/4 by 1 1/4, and I have another black scrap which is about 2 inches by 3. I have gold glimmer paper which is 4 1/4 by 2. And today's ink I'm going to be using is Versafine Onyx Black. That's the only ink today. The stamp set I'm using today is Edgy Eloquence by Stampin Up. I also am going to be using a number of die cuts. I have this Bride and Groom. These I got online from a warehouse company, so there's no company associated with it. I have a label framelits. This is very similar to, I think, a Sizzix label set, and it is also called label. I have rectangular stitched frames, and I have this one. This is a new company which I have only 2 of the dies, and I tried it out and I love it. This is really nice. The die set cuts the letters, and there's an additional die that cuts the shadow too. And this one says, congrats. It's by a company called Dare to Be Artsy. Now, I'm going to be using rhinestones. And I'm going to be using a few new things today for this technique. I'm using a brayer. This is just a roller rubber, which you can use to put ink onto your cardstock. I may make a video in the future showing some braying techniques, but I have not done too much of that, but that's not why I'm using it, and you'll see how I use it. And here is the surprising star of the video. I am going to be using some fabric, and I was at the Goodwill looking for craft supplies. If you're not shopping the Goodwill for craft supplies, you really should. You can sometimes find some great things. People who are crafters and decided not to for whatever reason, from schools who had ceramics and craft classes, and they're unloading the supplies. There's a lot of things that you can get in the craft section at the Goodwill. This was in the sewing section. It was fabric, and I guess this is about 2-3 yards of fabric for $4.99, and I took one look at it and I thought, oh, that would be good for anniversary cards, and that's where I got it from. So I'm going to go through this in a second and show you how I used it. And let me see, I also need Ranger's multi-matte medium. I'm going to need some Tombow adhesive, and that's about it. So let me clear this stuff away and I'll start right into the techniques and things for this card. Oh, let me tell you, I'm making this video at night. So in addition to my little friend, the shadow here, you know I have the shadow of my big melon head. Sorry, again, ignore that. Okay, before I do anything, I want to show you how I use this material as a starting point to make my card sample. The first thing I did was take the material to the photocopier and copy a representative piece of it. So this way I can work from this photocopy rather than cut out pieces of this fabric, even though I have quite a bit of it, and I guess it will be hundreds upon hundreds of possibilities out of it. I don't like to be wasteful, you know me. So I have this photocopy to work with, and using that photocopy I made my card sample, and this is here. So this is just copy paper, and this is the photocopy of this, and this of course, and this is real cardstock, but red and black I have abundance of it, so there was no reason to be super cheap with that. So the first thing I wanted to show you is how I got the this part, and this was very simple. I just took a piece of paper, let's just pretend this is cut to the same dimensions of the card base, half of it, which would make this at 5.5 by 4.25, and this card base is a dark color, so in order to represent the contrast between the photocopy of the background, which let me show you the background again to refresh you, was here, but you can't see it very clear unless you really got really good eyes, but I also photocopied that. I didn't want to waste that either. But I just took the pencil and just darkened in about 1/4 of an inch all the way around to represent the dark color. I didn't have to paint a piece of paper or use a lot of toner to get the dark. That's all you need to do that. Okay. So if you're having a card and you're not really sure how you're going to do the layout, this is a good way to go. Use a minimal amount of your supplies that you need to and photocopy the rest. So I was able to make this entire thing without wasting any of the gold glimmer paper, and it also is very representative of where I'm going. Sometimes if I don't go through all this trouble, I might just sketch it out by hand, and that's good too, because in this is just to get you with some ideas for where you want to go. So let me set that aside. The next thing I needed to do was prepare this. This frame is the rectangular die cut and the label die cut, and I just used some microspore tape. This is the same sort of tape that hospital uses. It's low tack, and I lined the two pieces up on my grid map and taped it together so it will hold in place. So I can run this through my Big Shot as one piece. I don't have to line it up again. So this is a trick for when you're doing layered die cuts. You can really save a lot of time by doing this. Now if I were to make many versions of this frame, all I have to do is just put this in with a new cardstock and just boom, in we go. So that's something also that I wanted to share with you. Okay, so now let's start into the actual card making. The first thing I need to do is decide which one of the motifs I wanted to use in my card. So if you look closely, you can see that the feet of one motif is coming into the frame of the other. So it's every single one of these motifs will not work for this particular design. So I need to be careful about which one I want to choose. And I hope you can see through this. So if I choose this one, then I have to be really careful with the head area because the dress from the one above comes into the frame. This will be covered by the black, but if I were to want their head down a little bit, for example, you'd see that there. Now I could get around that by going ahead and using this and then just put a little something here on the finished card, some little embellishment to cover that area. But I'm going to choose another one. I think I'm going to make this particular one for this card I'm going to make right now. So I just need to find this motif on the card, and I'll leave that there so I won't have to remember which one I decided, and find it on the card, on the this stuff, the fabric. So strangely enough, this is now a reversed image. Interesting. So because this is fabric, I'm going to have to get fabric scissors because we would be all day with my dull paper scissors. So you cut out larger than you need, of course. And I think that was enough. Hope so. Now the white panel that I have, come here you. I'm going to lay that on the white panel. Now this white panel is bigger than the frame area. I'll put it on there so you can see. It's bigger. It has to be bigger because I have to make sure that I get this centered to get the best picture. So I need it to be like around there. So the first thing to do is to stick this to this cardstock. And to do that, I have some spray adhesive. This you have to do outside in a well-ventilated area because I don't want anyone to start doing these videos that I'm doing and then end up getting ditzy and an ER trip and they say, oh, Lorraine made that happen. I'm telling you, outside, plenty of ventilation. So I'm going to take this outside, let me say that again, and spray this and stick it together. I'll be right back. Okay, now I have this back. Now I'm going to take a clean piece of paper, just scrap paper, and lay this on top, and this is where the brayer comes in. Just going to rub over it and press the adhesive into the fabric so that it sticks. So it just rolls right over it. This spray adhesive starts immediately tacky and it dries very fast. So there. Okay. Now I'm going to trim this little extra because it's a little sticky. And for this I'm going to just grab my old scissors. Do you see how dull it is on this fabric? Alright. And sticky too. Get this out the way. Alright, remember that's still a little tacky. Finish with you. Grab my big shot, it's out of my reach. Oh. Whew. Now, I'm going to show you this part on camera, though I usually don't deal with the big shot on camera because it's clunky. So the next thing is to take the black and the frames that you set aside ready to go. I'm going to run it through. And let me show you a trick about using these new plates. This is a new plate that I've gotten, but I don't know if you can see, but I have managed to mar it already. I think you can see that. The magnetic plate and the precision base plate adds an extra bit of pressure to the pressing, which is what you need when you're doing intricate dies, which this one is. So I ran this through when I cut this prototype, and it marred my plate, which is going to happen. This, you can see, has been used many times and it's got all kind of cuts in it. But if you want to avoid that, then be careful when you're using the precision base plate, because it will mar into this. But you can expect that you're going to have to replace your cutting plates pretty frequently. Another thing can show you, since I brought my Big Shot, is my plate is bowing in the center quite a bit. What you want to do to minimize this is every time you run your Big Shot sandwich through, you flip the plates over, and this will put additional pressure on the opposite side, and that will cut down on some of the bowing. So this one is bowing pretty much that way, so I'm going to push it through so that the raised side is going up to try to make that bow go out. And this is relatively still flat because it's new, and in order to prevent that bowing, I don't know if you can see it, I have written a 1 on one corner and a 2 on the other corner. So I know when I run it through, if I start with the one side, then when I go through to do another cut, I flip it over to the 2 side and then back and forth. That way you will minimize the bowing that happens. So that's just something I wanted to mention since I brought the Big Shot in. Okay, and also you can get, when you're running your sandwich through, if you put your die cut and paper at a little bit of an angle, then physics will work for you and you won't get as much cracking and jumping around as it goes through. It goes through a little bit smoother. See? No popping. And as you notice, this which was going this way is now going the opposite way. Let me show you. So I'm going to be doing a little bit more die cutting. I guess I can show you this first before I move on. So I'm going to pop it out, and here is the frame, which I don't need. And I'm also going to get this inside part, which I'm not using in design, but of course don't throw it away. Save it for something else. And here is the frame, which is what I actually do need. There you go. Alright, since I have this set up, I'm going to go and do the other die cutting that I need. So I have the gold, which will be for the shadow. And put in just a little bit of an angle, and it's reaching way apart. Come on, nails, you can pick it up. It's time for me to go and visit my friends at Q-Spa Nails and get my nails done again. Oh, good heavens. Come on, you. This couple. All right, now I got it. Move this into the frame a little bit. So this strip is going to be for the words, and I'm taking it right back off because I just remembered something about that. And this one is for the bride and the groom. All right. And flip this. It needs to be on the 2 side because I ran it through on the 1 side. And here we go. I really need to replace that bottom plate because the bow is a real pain at this point, but I still got a little bit of use to that one, so I'm going to stick it. Keep sticking it, and good habit to flip it immediately, then you won't have to remember. So this is the shadow, which is thicker, so I'm going to have to fight a little bit to get that out. I could have run this through 2 times and I would have got a cleaner break. Something to remember when you're using thicker paper or more intricate dies. If you just run it through a second time, you have better luck. So there, it came right out. Except for that. Yep, no problem. Set that aside. And the bride and the groom. And there they are. ready for their close-up. I'll set that aside, and that's trash. And now for this one, flip that bow thing over again. I know that I'm going to have to run this through a couple times, so I'm going to run this one by itself. And I actually could have run it through at the same time I did the gold paper, because that really needed to also. So just push it through. And when it's almost out, just wind it right back again. I'm going to give it a third time just to be sure. There we go. And it should come right out now. And you see it comes right out. Just you have to be careful, because this is very delicate and you don't want to tear it at this point. And plus I'm working a little bit far away from my poor eyesight. I'm bringing it as close as I can see. I don't want to tear it. See, David, I can make music too. Of course, now I guess I owe royalties to the dating game. That's one. Okay, and through the magic of television, I now have one that is in one piece. There. Throw that out and move this. Notice how I swapped it so I don't have to remember next time. I move this out of the way. Ugh, sure hope I don't need that again. Alright, made a huge problem over here. So I have a couple of little bits and bobs that are stuck in the letters, so I'm using my piercing tool and free them real quick. And they come right out, no problem. This, of course, would have come out a lot easier and quicker had I used my precision base plate. But like I said, my particular big shot, that puts just a little bit too much pressure onto my material. Each big shot is different, and I just prefer not to use it for this. Okay, so now I have my shadow. And I'm going to go ahead and glue this down because this is going to need a little bit of time to dry. So I'm going to take my offset tweezers and hold this. And I'm just going to add little dots of adhesive here and there to stick it down. This multi-matte medium works very good on small items, intricate stuff like this, and also on glitter paper, because glitter paper doesn't want to have adhesive on it because it just doesn't want to stick to the adhesive. So this item is very, very good when you're working with glitter paper. It's also good for small things like sequins and things like that that they don't want to stick very well with other ways. You see, I have added also a precision tip to this bottle. So it's very easy to get these little small areas. A trick that Frances Martin, who is my Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, FrenchieStamps.com, a trick that she showed was to use the Tombow glue and a sponge and just put a little bit of glue in an area and dab with the sponge and just dab all over this where you need the glue to be. And that's also a trick that you could use. And I see I have a little problem with this glimmer paper, which I will deal with in a moment. Okay, just lay it right in place. And the paper is coming a little bit separated from the backing, so I'm going to stick a drop of the multi-medium under there and stick that right to it. The problem is, since I'm doing this video at night, rather difficult for me to see some of these things. You know how things are when you get old. Okay, so I want to put a clear block on this to weight that down, and it'll be stuck in no time. So moving on to the next thing. Now I need to get the frame on here. Make sure I have the right side up, and I do. So I'm figuring out where I want it to be, and I don't want those guys' feet in my picture. So how to get around that? Uh-oh, I cut this a little too high up, I think. Funny, I didn't see that at first. Well, it is a good thing that I had a lot of this material, because I'm going to need to cut another piece, because I cut this too close to the bottom, and the only way to get it is to have the feet from the other one in. So a little bit more editing. I'll be right back. Okie dokie, back in the saddle again. I have another piece, larger paper, larger fabric, and I will show you the proper way this time. So you take the frame, and I also went back to the one that I did in my original one, and that way I didn't have to fight too hard to get it in there. So you see I have a little foot on this side and a little head on that, feet on that side, so I just need to be sure not to get that foot, and also give a good bit of area on the head. So I don't get the bottom of her dress and her foot, but that's alright. So what I'm going to do at this point is take my pencil and make a thin line on the outside of the frame. I'm not going to be worrying too much about accuracy, but I need to get it relatively close. That went too far off. There we go. And then down this side also, and finally along the bottom. Okay, now this is the outline of the frame. So I need to ensure that my cut will be less than that, because I needed to still be able to adhere this, and I don't want it hanging out the side, so I'm going to cut just under the line there. Hopefully my special dull scissors will not have too much trouble here. But if it does, I'm going to have to switch to the fabric scissors and just not tell Jackie that I did that. Okay, looks like it's going to work. Okay, that's that side. And don't want to go too far in, because then the edge will show, which is where the other problem was. Okay, just inside. And finally the bottom. Okay. Throw all this sticky stuff away. Now let's check that and see how good I did. Pretty good. Okay. Now, the first time I did this, I put the adhesive on this side and then took this on top, because that is in fact easier to do. However, I didn't see exactly where the frame was going to end up, and I got adhesive showing or on these narrow edges. So the best way to do it is to put the adhesive on the frame itself. So for that, I'm going to grab my Tombow and just put a few dots here and there. I need to get a fresh bottle, but there's still a little bit of juice in this one, so. And you do not want to put too much, because it will leach out and it will be visible, and you don't want that. You could have also continued to use the multimedia for this. And I don't want to get my fingers all sticky, so I'm going to grab my tweezers and get them to help me with this process a bit, and just lay it in place. Because I use a Tombow, it has a little bit of flexibility, so I can give it a little bit of movement to help me line it up, which I need because I was off by a little bit. There and there. Now again, another friend of piece of paper. Oops, don't look at that. That was my bank info. I reuse paper and when I print out, you know, recycle, reuse. So I need my brayer again. Make sure I get a good pressing seal. Yes, I really am going to show you a video how to use this brayer. It's a fun thing to have and do. Okay, now that's good. Now set that aside under the way, and this is ready. Let that sit there. Now, next step, I'm going to jump ahead and do the inside of the card. And for that, I need my stamp set, which I have put aside. There. Also need my stamp pad so I can get a little bit extra push, because I want to be sure that I get a good impression. Okay, stamp this near the bottom. Good. Now, close that. I need my pokey tool because I see I forgot to get the little bits out of her arm. There we go. And I'm going to glue this right down here. So bring in my Tombow again. And this is where the little intricate bits and pieces, I could have used the multimedia and I wouldn't have had to been as careful as I have to here, because this is a little wide, but it'll do. And this little bride and groom goes right there. Ordinarily, I do not put die cuts on the inside of a card because that sometimes adds a little bit of dimension on the inside, and that will put a strain on the binding of the card. But this is a very flat one, very small one, so it'll be fine. I wouldn't recommend popping this up on foam tape, for example. There. Okay, everything else is just simple card assembly, so I'm going to let the wonderful music by my brother play and put the card together. All right, that's the finished card. There were a couple of hiccups along the way, hiccup, hiccup, but it came together in the end. I hope that doesn't dissuade you from trying that. There are a lot of different fabrics that you might see that you get your hands on. They have a lot of elements or prettiness that you think, hey, I could use that. So don't let that scare you off. Just, you saw how easy it is. Just remember, if you're using that spray adhesive, outside. Don't spray it in this house. It's very toxic in large doses in enclosed places. I'd like to thank my brother David again for the music that he's provided for my channel. This video didn't have too much of his music in it, but sometimes it's more music, sometimes it's less, but all of it is beautiful. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. Bob, Jeannie, I hope you like this card. I can't wait for you to see this. Thanks for watching. Please get the word out. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Take care, everyone, and have a great day. Keep crafting.